let me take you back to a distant memory of a library, a school, or maybe a family computer, a jewel case, and the start of a journey. I'm talking, of course, about the Oregon Trail. Whether you're playing the weird green version or one of the many others, chances are you were captivated by this game. I know I was, and I've been chasing kind of that sense of adventure in a game for many years. I didn't really know I was looking for it until I found it in an unexpected place. A game called Dustland Delivery. There's something thrilling about planning an adventure. Naming members of a party. With the Oregon Trail, you'd sometimes name them after your friends, you'd load up on supplies, and you'd hit the trail. Now, I'm going to make a controversial statement. The Oregon Trail 5th edition is the best version of the game, and I'll have to address why at another time. All that to say, I believe that Dustland Delivery is the modern Oregon Trail we didn't know we needed. Let me tell you why. In Dustland Delivery, you play the role of a nomadic truck driver who drives the barren roads of a post-apocalyptic wasteland. While providing you with shelter and storage and speed, even your rig can be a liability. With tires, engine heating, fuel, and other critical systems constantly in play, you kind of have to monitor everything, including weather and road conditions. If you run too hot in the summer, you might have to use some of your water to cool your engine. Repair in transit means stopping, and you might not want to or be able to stop. Don't take too many shortcuts, or you might not have the gas to make it back. And gas isn't free. From hitchhikers, storms, wild animals, strange lights in the distance, heavily armed bandit convoys, helpless traders, there's random adventures littered throughout the road. Staying alive is one thing, but you also have to sleep, eat, and rest. You have to make sure that your driver is getting enough time at the inn or camping, and you have to make sure that you stock your truck with enough food and water to keep them alive. You might be wondering why you keep driving. Well, the goal is to stake your rightful claim, but to do so, you need money to file the paperwork. And to make money, you'll be trading and making deliveries across leagues of inhospitable wilderness until you reach the next town. You can assemble a crew of ragtag traders, drivers, fighters, or workers, set up a stall to sell weapons or homemade lunches, socialize at the bar, or build your own industries. Around each bend, there's new adventures, a new quest, a new path, a new road, perhaps a person to help, or bandits to fight. Most recently, I decided that I would select a crew of only robots because they don't need to eat, only to find out that they in fact do consume fuel. I spent an in-game week trying to fix their fatigue levels by sleeping at the inn, only to try randomly to give them gas, and that's what fixed them. We could finally drive, and we could finally leave town, and I could stop blowing scrap getting them a room at the inn that they weren't even using. They're robots, they don't need to sleep. If you've ever played a post-apocalyptic survival game, Fallout 1 or 2, maybe even Wasteland, you know how replayable these games can be. There's a great open-endedness to these games. Often larger titles with physically larger worlds, better gameplay systems, and on a whole, better games will often have, at least in my experience, a funneling effect. Think of Fallout 4 and trying to constantly avoid the orbit of ending up in Sanctuary Hills. Dustland approaches gameplay with a randomness that makes starting over fun. Fights, side quests, random outcomes, unless you have proper skills, took me back to the days where understanding the treatment for an illness could save your Oregon Trail party. How the farther you got, you understood that you were barely hanging on, and perhaps you would need some luck. Or if you were doing really well, perhaps you could take some risks. I found myself in Dustland playing with a pen and paper, taking notes about markets, putting together 3 city runs of food, supplies, and then stopping for repairs. There were risky areas that I had to prepare for. Lean days with barely enough scrap for a room and a little bit of fuel to get me to the next town. More than once, merchants would run out of money just as I was there to sell my goods. And one time, even a rival faction beat me to the market and flooded it with their cheaper goods, cutting my payday out from underneath me. And this is just one playthrough, completely different from the others that I've played, where I was generous and ended up getting robbed and stuck in a swamp with an overheated engine. If there's one thing that Oregon Trail taught me, it's that the trail was brutal. The needs of the many often outweighed the needs of the few, and often if someone was injured or sick, they could put the entire party at risk. Tough choices had to be made. Dustland does this really, really well. The encounters in Dustland are actually layered behind 2 or 3 different checks or roles, as you might call them in D&D, where you might get the same encounter throughout the game, but depending on what happens in this particular encounter, it can actually have different outcomes. It might be positive, it might be negative. The encounters are completely gray. Stories can range from silly to downright dark, and in a way that surprised me, but I shouldn't be. This is the wasteland after all. You might encounter a hitchhiker. Should you stop to help? A stranger asks you to deliver a package. Do you oblige? Should you fight? Should you flee? You might see an abandoned building and want to go inside. There's no real reward for being kind. There's also no inherent benefit for being ruthless either. It's a roll of the dice. So you go with your gut and you see what happens. Sometimes you may be forced down a path because you lack a skill or a resource to weasel your way out, and so you either have to fight through or become resourceful and think of other ways to survive the encounter. When you first see the map and see its expanse, its danger zones and hazards, it can be daunting to think about the trips that you'll need to make to faraway areas. Fighting bandits for production facilities or looting caches. Even as you try to play the market, you can still get stiffed at any moment. I remember helping an old woman only to have her run away, lock herself in her house, and steal my daily wages. When I confronted her, the townspeople turned on me. I was the one who got robbed. It set me back a few days, and I ended up having to explore a more risky nearby area just to make enough money to buy the products to fix my hull. But I just had to keep going. There was no quest, there was no guide, no path or yellow map marker. Just figure out some way to get gas and get the truck moving again. The feeling of resourcefulness and problem solving that's free of a mechanic or a must-see narrative was refreshing in a game that I had never played before. On this latest playthrough, I actually left my newly freed friend, who was almost made into human sausage, to run my new water plant at my settlement. He couldn't be a part of the robot crew because we don't carry food. But a new start. And perhaps between loading up my truck, I finally realized that Dustland Delivery is the modern Oregon Trail that I didn't know I was looking for. Say what you want about first-person survival, it could never quite scratch the itch of Oregon Trail. I'm really glad games like this are still being made, and if you're trying to get lost in a game that's Oregon Trail meets Mad Max, you should really give this one a try. Thank you for all the support on my other review videos. I'm glad this sort of content's been enjoyed, and I hope to keep making it. If you've enjoyed this video, remember to like it and subscribe. It helps me know what to make more of. Thanks for watching.